Hey guys, it's Duke for Intimacy Liberation Army, and today we're talking about healing from narcissistic abuse. I've been in a number of relationships where, through no fault of their own, my partners were dealing with their own personal trauma. They're dealing with their own stuff that makes them behave in ways that are controlling and hyper anxious and denied me of my needs, denied me of the things that I was asking for. And I was at fault a little bit. Like, I'm not like throwing blame around, but I was at fault a little bit for not seeing ways to cope and deal and be assertive and set boundaries and whatever. But they were also at fault for using these tactics and tools that were not particularly useful for growth in our relationship. So, in the although I'm going to kind of gloss over some concepts today, this is more about the if you're coming from a place like maybe I'm in a relationship where I'm not being served the best, I'm taking some abuse it doesn't make me feel good about myself. These are kind of ways to identify the issue, the fixing the problems, and getting into healing from your own emotional standpoint are going to be a little bit more complicated than the scope of this video. But here are 5 signs that you can use to tell if you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship. Number 1, you always feel like you're walking on eggshells. There are a number of ways that we exist in power dynamics as humans. And when we're living in fear, or living in reaction that our partner or our whoever we're seeing is gonna flip out and do something, or I've seen it from I was afraid that one of my girlfriends was gonna kill herself if I was gonna be push an issue too much. They were gonna start throwing things. They were gonna start being disappointed and stonewall me for the next 3 days, or whatever the consequence may be. If you're in a relationship where you're afraid that if you speak the truth or your whatever, then they're going to respond in a way that's going to hurt themselves, hurt you, or the relationship. And so you're constantly monitoring your behavior so that they don't flip out or they don't get set off or whatever. That's definitely abusive. It's definitely a control mechanism in the relationship. And sometimes, it can go from the violence route where they flip out and start being angry and throwing things or whatever. And sometimes it can go the victim route where they feel so abhorred and overwhelmed or hyper anxious, and they have to hide from you or cut you off, and give you the cold shoulder or stonewall you for a little bit. And both of those responses, and whatever they have realized are your hot buttons to control, when they use those things in response to your requests for boundaries or asserting your own needs, wants, communication, desires. I found relationships where I would ask for negotiation. I'd ask for them to sit down and talk with me about a thing that was bothering me. And they would act like, oh, yeah, this is too much for me right now. I just can't get into this conversation right now. There's so much going on in my head, and I just get anxious and da 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 da. Don't push me too far. I don't want to talk about this thing, and you just need to figure it out. That is fucking narcissistic abuse. Like they assume that they're so important that they can't meet you on an even playing field to discuss and communicate about things, to the point where you don't have a voice anymore and you feel like you're walking on eggshells. That's something that, you can choose to take the suffering, right? Like, you can choose to rationalize it away and say, I'm the bigger one in this relationship, and I'll just handle everything for them, and they'll come around eventually, or whatever excuse you want to use yourself. But at the end of the day, if two humans can't get together and deal with each other, like make a business deal kind of thing, like where they can see eye to eye, lay out the things on the table, lay out the other things on the table, agree to disagree on some things, and choose a solution that makes things move forward. You're not going to have a healthy, balanced relationship. And what is healthy, right? But if you cannot negotiate anything in your relationship, you are doomed to always have an imbalance of power in it. And yeah, you can live in these relationships for years and years and years and years, and big yourself up and tell yourself that everything's still going to be okay and everything's going to work out in the end. But it creates resentment, it creates fear, it creates a dysfunctional ability to deal with communication concepts moving forward. And after a relationship where you've been kind of giving away your power for so long, it's hard to get into another relationship and recognize what's healthy, or recognize what would be a more equal exchange of power. So first thing, walking on eggshells. Second thing to look out for is if they belittle or criticize you for anything that you're doing. There's one thing to correct you in a way that, let's say you made a wrong decision, or you're always thinking impulsively, or your decisions aren't the best. Like, let's say you guys have issues over money, or you guys have issues over food choices, or how long you work out, or whatever it is. They can be like, have you considered that thing that you said last week? It doesn't seem to be in line with what you're saying this week, right? You're kind of lying to yourself and to me right now, and I just want to point that out. That's kind of a supportive way to remind yourself to keep your own integrity. On the other hand, if they're just like, you always do this, you're stupid, why do you even try to make these decisions? I told you not to do that, and now look at what you're doing, and they just belittle you every time you're in a situation where they think you fucked up. They are they're less trying to control you in a they're always frustrating me, I just need to get them to do it right. They're less trying to control you in that way, which is kind of how they make it look, but they're more trying to control you just to control you. So they're using the fear of them flipping out, like walking on eggshells from a moment ago, and they're also using the fear of, the pain of being belittled to get you to second guess your feelings and get you to not act in a way that's going to endanger whatever they think is going on. In a healthy relationship, anger is okay. Frustration is okay. Leaving and cooling off for a little while and then coming back to renegotiate is okay. Belittling, abuse, stonewalling, ignoring you, restricting you from money or sex or anything other currency in your relationship, that's all abusive. That's all control mechanisms, because the other person doesn't want to let go of their view of how the relationship should be going. Very often, these kinds of control mechanisms grow over time, and they just pull the trigger on the control mechanism out of habit rather than, a conscious audit of your feelings to see if that's the type of control mechanism you need at that time, right? Like, there are times where I had one girlfriend, she would just get enormously hammered, and then she'd drink a bunch, and then she would endanger herself. She would like start doing stupid shit and trip over things and sprain her ankles and whatever. And so sometimes I would need to be like, look, you need to sit down and not be on your feet right now. You are falling over drunk. Shut up. Yeah. And that was not the kind of control that was like me having an ego and trying to make sure she always responded to my whim. It was me trying to protect her in that moment. And I would never pull that kind of card when she was thinking straight. And I could just be like, hey, it's your choice, but you're being dumb, So on the other hand, if they belittle you for whatever's going on, it can start to close in and make you feel more and more trapped and less like you, because you keep giving up all these things out of fear that they're going to respond in one way or another. Number three is that they criticize you or they're super perfectionistic about your behavior. Very often, I would get into relationships because I was such a people pleaser where I would try everything I could to make them happy. And so I was hyper vigilant on like whatever made them happy and whatever made them sad. And I try to like avoid all the things that make them sad and avoid, big up the things that made them happy. And what would happen is over time, they would get used to that behavior, and then they would constantly up and up the threshold for what would set them off or what would make them happy, right? Like I would do something that was totally out of the realm, like way beyond what a normal human would do, just to get a positive response, and they'd kind of pat me on the head and be like, "Good boy." But then if I fucked up something minuscule, then they would flip out on me, and I'm like, okay, well, while I didn't understand what assertiveness was, what the boundaries were, how to value myself and understand what I was worth, I would just kind of take it and like, promise to do better next time. And it basically made me this shell of a human being that I wasn't able to have healthy boundaries, and which obviously killed sexual attraction and did a whole bunch of bad things for me. So, in moving out of that, if somebody's critical or perfectionistic about what you're doing, you kind of know that you are in an abusive relationship. And this might be normal to you because your parents might have been this way. And then, so you just kind of respond, right? People who latch on to controlling humans like this, narcissistic humans, they're used to it generally from some sort of trauma in the past. They've had the experience of trying to live up to a fucking perfectionistic standard, and so they understand the day-to-day grind of trying to do that, and they're comfortable in it. And so then they get into a relationship with somebody who's asking the same things of them. It's kind of natural to fall into the same patterns. Number four of understanding whether or not you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship is your partner's emotionally unavailable. I touched on this earlier when we were talking about feeling like you're walking on eggshells. If two humans are going to meet together and negotiate on whether or not something should happen or they agree on something, right? Then they should come with the respect for each other to tell the truth, agree to work on it, and then come up with a solution that meets everybody's needs, or stay out of each other's hair. Sometimes you come to a thing which is like, we're not going to agree, but we understand this, how we feel, right? One of the ways that a narcissist maintains their control over you is when you want to talk about the stuff and you want to hash it out and you want to find a solution, that they become emotionally unavailable. They either delve themselves hardcore into work so they don't have any time for you, and their priority is this and not that. Sometimes they act like they're overwhelmed. Sometimes they are overwhelmed. Like, I'm not gonna hate on people having anxiety. It's just that you need to manage it in order to deal with healthy relationships with other people. So I had one girlfriend who would just get overwhelmed and super anxious as soon as we had to have some sort of communication or talk, right? This is, abandonment issues, avoidant attachment, whatever you want to call it. But she would basically say, you know what, our relationship isn't worth negotiating. So I'm just going to fucking hide. And if you want it to be fixed, then you go fix it yourself and you show me that you fixed it right. And a lot of cultural mores come to this. Like, if you're the man in the relationship and you should be making decisions, you should be the leader in whatever their headspace is. They're like, you need to handle that, or otherwise you're not a good man, or whatever. Like, and then now you're stuck trying to fucking deal with your partner being emotionally unavailable for you to talk to and get data from and get input from and make a decision together. and now you have to make the decision, and then you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so sometimes cultural things can add to that. But at the end of the day, your partner should be available to, and at least at your emotional level, so that they can help you solve problems in the relationship specifically. If they're not available and they just shut down on you, very often they're using that tool to control you, to keep you from putting things in their face that they don't want to see, or to change the status quo that they don't want changed. And it's hilarious. Like, if you kind of get out of the people pleaser mode and be like, okay, wait, hold on. You have zero time for me in the last 2 months to meet my needs or communicate. You're too overwhelmed. You're too whatever. And yet everybody else in your life, you treat very differently, right? You respond to them. You give all this time away. It's like, I'm your partner. I feel like I should have some part of the hierarchy closer to the top than not, right? Otherwise, what am I doing here? And asking that question to yourself, for me, it opened my eyes quite a bit. It's like, okay, where do I stand in the priority of your life? You got your work, you got your house, you got whether or not you slept, you got whether you're hungry, you got random things that came across in your text message, you have, I'm not finished with this game right now, and then you got me. Like, okay, if that's the case, if that's truly the hierarchy that I'm in, which is, it's not the case, it's just a control mechanism, but if it's truly the case, then I don't want to be here anymore, because I have my life, passion, and then you, right? And then everything else goes under that. So can we talk about this, right? No, I don't have time. I don't have whatever. So when they're being emotionally unavailable, it is a way to keep you chasing. Right? It's a way to keep you seeking emotional support. It's a way to keep you getting just enough and then coming back for more and coming back for more. And through the variable reward structure, sometimes they're super, like, I had this one girl, she was so good at, right when I'm just about to be like, all right, what am I even doing here? I have to fucking leave this thing. She's never going to fucking grow up and like give me the intimacy I'm looking for. She's going to keep stonewalling me and I'm going to be fucking sad. And then she would spend 3 days that was just like fucking bliss and everything I was looking for. And like, I know she's capable. And then boom, shut it off for fucking 17, 18 more days. And I'm like, what? I know she can do it. I know she can. Like, why? What am I doing wrong? And then I go in myself and I try to like make it better, which gives her the validation. And it was just this massive roller coaster until I started setting boundaries and being like, look, you're gonna have to negotiate or you can fuck yourself. and then she understood, and that's not working out. And so as we move forward through finding new relationships, finding partners who will be available and who will be attentive to you emotionally is important. Number 5, your partner is manipulating or gaslighting you. This is it's like a big thing on TikTok right now. Like, how to know you're being gaslit. How to know, right? Basically, if you feel not good enough around your partner, you're in a narcissistic controlling relationship. From a psychological definition thing, narcissistic personality disorder is something very, very specific. But so I'll say it differently. If you feel like you're not good enough around your partner and you feel like it's their approval that you're seeking, there's one of two things is happening. One, your low self-worth, your low self-esteem, you're projecting onto your partner and blaming them for judging you. But more likely the case is they are controlling you with your low self-esteem. Or they are controlling you with your unsurety or insecurity. And that's it. Like, it's really that simple. You are in an abusive relationship when they are using these tools to control you. And you are feeling controlled. If you're feeling controlled, you can always test and be like, hey, I feel like I would like it to be in this way, and I don't understand why it doesn't work this way. And they're like, oh, that's stupid. You're not thinking straight. It's like, what do you know about relationships? Who's going to love you? Blah, blah. Or whatever there's going on. They're going to respond in a way that will let you know that they don't actually care about what you're feeling. They care about their power and their control over you. So those are the 5 things to look out for in the whole narcissistic abuse thing. You don't have to have narcissistic personality disorder in order to have a control complex over your partner. And then you can abuse them just fine, even if you're not far down the whole narcissism route, right? There's one thing to be super prideful and super, optimistic about your own abilities and whatever. But when you choose a romantic partner, they should ideally be a support in your mission. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl or a leader or a supporter or a mother or a father or a nurturer or a decision maker or whatever role you want to play. Your partner should be a support in your mission. They should agree with your mission. They should respect you and the things that you want to do in life, and they should help you along those paths. Otherwise, the partner that you have is really just a parasite of whatever energy you have to provide them, and it's not a partner like in a business partner sense or a teammate type sense. It's another human that you're using to get some sort of fulfillment out of, right? Like it's not a relationship in that way. It's a relationship of, it's like not an equal partnership type of relationship. It's a relationship of power dynamics, and when you're in one of these relationships with the power dynamics, the more and more you invest into it, the worse and worse it gets. Generally, you have, you can end up getting married, invest with their family. You can end up having kids together. You can have doing all this stuff, and it makes it much harder to leave with more and more investments into the space. And like you've heard me say in some other videos, like leaving is the only real civilized option. Like you can't manipulate somebody else into doing what you want. You really can only leave something that doesn't match you, which requires a lot of self-awareness. If you get into the game of manipulating back, like they're manipulating you, and then you got to manipulate them. I had a friend whose mom was like that. Her son was super abusive, and she would be like, oh, I know how to deal with this. And, if I just do it a certain way, then he doesn't flip out. And I'm the only one who understands this. And we have to keep this hidden from everybody. And that's how he maintained control. It's because nobody from the outside was able to look at it with clear eyes and expose the blind spots that she was applying to the relationship. And so as soon as that outside eye got in there, that was me. I was able to kind of shine a light on all that stuff, and he ended up having to do his abuse elsewhere because now he's got accountability for it. He's responsible for the things that are going on because somebody has seen that he is being retarded. Yeah, if you're in one of these relationships, just know that you actually don't, because of your humanity, you actually don't deserve to live in fear, to live in reaction, to live in, at the beck and call of your partner. You don't deserve that because of your humanity. Like your rights as a human make it so that you don't deserve that. Like if you choose to stay in it, that's on you. And you have, there are different ways to get help. You can seek out, professional advice. You can work through things. I understand the family system stuff is complicated. Like, I'm not saying like, just leave, bro. That's the answer. While it is, I know that it's more complicated than that. So, the real way to fix this stuff is to understand that you don't deserve it. And figure out ways to set boundaries, figure out ways to assert yourself, figure out ways to get support. One of the worst things that abuse victims do is isolate themselves, because the narcissist or the abuser will encourage that behavior. They'll make it so you don't want to talk to your friends. They don't want to talk to your family. They don't want to talk to people who could see the situation for what it is and destroy their little ivory castle of control. And if you can learn how to assert yourself, how to find a support system, and deal with the fact that you don't deserve it anymore, or at all, then you will find your way moving out of that relationship pretty quickly. If all you do is bitch, whine, moan, and complain, there are some people who will come to me and talk, friends, not clients. They will talk all about their horrible, horrible boyfriend and how he's so bad to her and da 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 da. But year after year, they continue going back to the relationship. I'm not a big fan of throwing blame around, but if you want to fix yourself, you will. And I've known people in horrendous situations that got themselves out because they couldn't take anymore. They were done. They decided to make a 180 in their life. Like I said, it's fucking hard when you love somebody. It's hard when you're, enmeshed in a relationship that isn't good for you, but that's kind of all you know. It's hard when you have a lot of past trauma and you're not resolved it. It's hard when you're afraid of abandonment, and so you take whatever doesn't abandon you. There's a bunch of different things that make this really, really complicated. But at the end of the day, you can't have a healthy, what's the word? It's like, you can't have a growth-oriented or burgeoning relationship that is good for you, your partner, and the humans around you if you're constantly living in fear of your relationship, the thing that's supposed to be the closest thing to you. So that's that. Recognizing narcissistic abuse. I've got a worksheet in the description below if you want to go do some journaling and write about your feelings and get some of those things off your chest. Kind of let go of some of that. I'm not qualified to help you in this situation. You want to reach out to an actual therapist, and you've heard me do this in the past. You've got fucking medical insurance. It's got parity. Go get some counseling. Go get a therapist. Try them out until you find the one you want, and talk to them about your shit. And they can suggest good ways. They're certified professionally, board certified to suggest those things, and they deal with those things all the time. You may have had very, very bad experiences with therapists in the past. Find a different one, because you're not supposed to go through this shit alone. Humans are a social species. That's what I got to say about that. Tomorrow I will come back. I think we're talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about building rapport quickly. It's a lighter subject. So building rapport quickly with new humans. I will see you guys tomorrow talking about that. Subscribe to the channel if you like it, and I will see you then. Till then, stay awesome.